Hey guys, we've got a 10-minute game on the board against a player rated 342. So this is one of the lowest ratings that I've played against. I'm playing with the black pieces and we've got e4, e5 on the board. We're just going to play it fairly normal. Okay, the bishop's opening. If I bring out my knight here, I'm attacking the king's pawn, which is currently undefended. So he could have knight coming out. Possibly this knight might also come out. Okay, so f3, that's an unusual move. The reason is because it opens up this line to the king. So my focus now is it also makes it less likely for the king to castle that side because this diagonal is also open. So what I need to be doing now is continuing with development. I'd like to move my d pawn at some point. I could move that now, but I think better to get a piece out in the board. So I'm going to bring out my dark square bishop, maybe even think about castling. So what are we expecting at mid 300s? Hard to say. I would expect hanging pieces, possibly failing to complete development. Okay, so it looks like the knight's headed here. Now the king can't castle there because this square is protected by the bishop. So white is going to be at least 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 moves away from castling now. Whereas I can castle immediately on, what is it, 4th move. Let's go ahead and castle. Should I castle now? Am I worried about this knight coming in? No, I'm not. Because even if the knight comes in and then wants to capture on f7, then trading a rook and a pawn for a knight and a bishop is generally better for the person who's captured the knight and the bishop. Knight and the bishop control more squares on the board than a rook and a pawn. A knight can control up to 8 squares if it is in this central square, 4x4. So I'm not concerned about that. And also what you see here is that my opponent's now moved a developed piece now a second time. So I'm not concerned about this at all. For that reason I'm just going to continue to develop. If he takes, I'll recapture. So black now has 1, 2, 3 pieces out in the board and castling, which is worth 2. So I've got a development score of 5 against my opponent's development score of 2. So we look at the squares that I control now. Quite a lot in my opponent's territory. Okay, what's going on here? Well, that pawn is undefended. And he's really opening up that side of the board. I'll just grab it. So there you go, just literally hanging a pawn. And it's also meant that the e-file is now semi-open. Okay, now this is okay, the queen's hanging for one thing. The first thing I noticed was discovered attack. If I play d5, I'm hitting the bishop and the queen, but the queen is literally just hanging. So before you make a move like that, you need to, I've just made the move. But what you need to do is you need to bring the queen there and go, is that square safe? I mean, that's literally the first thing that should cross your mind. Okay, let's retreat the knight. In fact, I don't even need to. I could put the knight here, where it's defended by this bishop. It'll force the rook to move. But then I'm going to... that's okay. I'm up a queen anyway, so I'm going to go in. I'll play that move and then I might think about knight maybe here and then attack c2 with a fork on king and rook. I mean, that's just it's a straight up blunder. You know, to put your queen on a square that is covered by one of your opponent's pieces, that's why you're 300. And you need to develop at least the most basic discipline of not putting your pieces in harm's way. I mean, there are much more sophisticated and less obvious ways of putting your pieces in harm's way. I mean, like I say, the first thing that I saw was this. If let's say this knight wasn't there, but the queen is now putting itself in the way of a discovered attack, so d5 would hit both the bishop, and we have bishop attacking queen. So queen has to move, then I win the bishop. Okay, but that's not a 300 level tactic. That's more of a 600, 700, 800 level tactic that you might see it there or above. Anyway, so we've lost the queen, knight's come in here, rook's moved. All right. Okay, so now knight, I think, to here, threatening this fork. Very, very common target. These c pawns, c2, c7. If you can attack them with a knight, always a good idea. And for a knight, for the same side knight, it's only three hops to attack that pawn. Okay. So now I can capture the bishop, pawn recaptures, and I jump in with the knight. This pawn will be undefended. I haven't lost a piece yet in the game. Okay, so I can play that with check. That'll just force the king to move, but I don't really win material that way. So we'll do check there, and then grab the rook. And then once... white can't even recapture, actually. So white might grab this pawn. Okay, grab the rook. There's a little chat icon on the side. So I can just send emojis. The little shortcut there. Alright, so now what would I like to do? I'd like to defend this pawn. I'd also like to defend that knight if possible. But I don't know how I'm going to do it. Should get this bishop out of the way. Let's try and get the queen into the middle of the board. Pawn takes, I've got queen takes. Okay, it's an attack on the bishop. I'll drop the bishop back to... No. See, if I drop the bishop back here and then pawn there, I need to move again. So I'll just drop my bishop back to b6. See, now I'm doing a sanity check, right? I'm rated nearly 1400 and this guy's rated a lot lower. I'm just checking that there's nothing stupid about this move. Yes, the knight can come out and hit the queen, but that's not a bad thing. Knight comes out, hits queen. Okay, I'm going to come here and attack this guy. I also now have two attackers on this pawn here, and then there's only one defender. Might also be nice to squeeze my queen into there and then attack with the rook as well. Okay, so he's moved the rook. So if I do get in there, the king has to come out. I think that's interesting. Let's do it. Or grab the pawn and just simplify. No, let's try and go for a win. This bishop probably wants to come out to f5, I'd imagine. Covering some good squares now around the king. King can't actually move. Again, rook, attack my pawn, no brainer. Simple blunder. This pawn is actually pinned now, so can't recapture. So we're looking at a swift ending, I think, from this position. Okay, knight attacks queen. Queen attacks king. King can move to one of two squares. I can now capture with the pawn, threaten the bishop. Bishop can capture. Okay, there we go. This pawn's hanging. This knight is pinnable. That's quite tempting. I think that's a good move. This is still hanging. That's hanging. That's undefended. So I'm practicing building up my awareness of what's defended and undefended on the board. because that can simply show you where the tactics are. Okay, so the knight's moved now here to defend this pawn. I have queen here, which has some merit. Also allows my knight to come out as well, guarding some useful squares, and that pawn as well. So that's check. If bishop blocks, I'm inclined to... in fact, the bishop's defending the c7 square from the knight fork. So I probably want to remove this knight. Might go here. I've got capture on g2 with check as well. Let's capture on g2 with check. King can't go there, anywhere on here. Might see bishop blocks again, in which case I can grab the pawn though, because the bishop will have pinned itself. If the bishop goes there, it can't move, because it's preventing check. You can't move into check. Once his pawn falls as well, this knight is hanging. Okay, so let's grab the pawn. Now this is no longer a threat because the knight's been forced away. I now have rook takes e5 check. I've got queen takes f2 check. My opponent is hanging on. It's nice to see that he's using the 10 minutes as well though. Right, knight to there. That's a funny one. I'm going to take the bishop with check, I think. Queen and bishop are now defending each other. It's called coordination. This square is now also available for my knight. Alright, so what's the best way to finish this off? King can't go there, there. All there. If I put queen on the back rank, king could go here. I can't use my light square bishop right now. I think the quickest way is rook takes knight and then rook e1. Now that's inviting. Knight takes c7, attacking the rook, but it's too late. And there we have checkmate. There you go. So, quick review. If you're in the 300 to 400 range, what should you be looking out for? Okay, this is normal, bishop's opening. That is a inaccuracy, at least. Opening up lines to the king, and as we'll see, makes life difficult for castling. Okay, I've now castled early, and I've got a big lead in development, 4 against 2. Again, moving a developed piece a second time, blundering a pawn, blundering a queen, walking into a fork, which is, I wouldn't really have expected a 300 player to see the fork threat. This is good. I mean, spotted the threat against the rook, saw it was undefended, moved the rook onto an open file, which is good. Queen now comes in and hanging a rook. We have a check. Kick the attacker away, and it's just now just a case of mopping up all this spare material. And there you go. So yeah, if you're in the 300 to 400 range, what do you need to look out for? Try and learn 1 or 2 openings, because this definitely is not a standard approach. I don't think with f3, definitely weakening. But yeah, learn 1 or 2 solid ways to start and try and stick to those, because they're standard openings for a reason. And before you drop a piece, hold it there and go, am I about to lose this piece if I leave it there? Okay, that's all you really need to be thinking about at that level. Get to 400 and I'll see you there. All right, thanks for watching. See you later.